Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here with my friend Madeline Holland, the co-CEO of Talent Beyond Boundaries. Madeline, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you. Your name and your nonprofit organization have come up over and over to me as we've done shows with people. I can't even remember exactly who connected us. I want to say it was maybe Kerwin, our good friend Kerwin Guillermo.
Yeah,
Have
that
you,
sounds.
how long have you known Kerwin? How did you two link up?
Gosh, I can't remember exactly how Kerwin got introduced to the organization, but he is like many of the sort of people we've been really lucky to cross paths with, who have this incredible history of working in relocation, with working on questions about how do you get talent to where it's needed and what's the best way to do it, who hear about our mission, who hear about Talent Beyond Boundaries and step up and say, how can I get involved? At every step of the way, we've been extremely fortunate to be meeting those kind of guardian angels who hear about this project and just want to figure out how they can help.
This is great, and we've got people checking in right now, and I want to just encourage everybody out there, get it active in the comments, please. Let me know who you are, where you're at, what you're up to today. Give your company a shout out. Love to hear your questions for Madeline as well. I would actually love to kind of challenge everyone who's listening now to kind of engage your brain and kind of think about, okay, how do we support this organization? I want to learn more about it, but I think that we are uniquely positioned as global mobility professionals, this community right here, to work hand in hand with your organization, Madeline. So I'm really excited about today and how we can do that. So go ahead and hit that like button right now. Let everybody know that we are on. We've got a few comments coming in. Tim Quirk, hello, Madeline and Ben from a cloudy Western New York. What's up, Tim A?
Hello.
You've got family out that way, don't you, Madeline, from Western New York?
I was just saying, my dad's from Buffalo, but hasn't lived there in a while.
Sweet. There we go. Alan King, hi, Ben and Madeline. Looking forward to the show today. Checking in from Germany.
Hello.
Nice. Alan King getting active here. That's awesome. Marilee Bratt, hello, Ben and Madeline from Minnesota. I look forward to this discussion. Hello. It's fantastic. Marilee, I love your questions. Denise checking. I love your questions too. Denise, hi from Chicago. Val in the house from Deluxe in Houston, H-Town in the house. This is great. Love this. So why don't you go ahead, as people are coming in now, everybody hit that like button. Think of some questions as well. I'd love to have your questions as well in the comments. But Madeline, tell us a little bit about Talent Beyond Boundaries.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And I totally agree. This is the right audience for this message. Talent Beyond Boundaries is a nonprofit that was based on the idea that there are global skill gaps around the world. There are companies, there are communities that are in desperate need for talent. And at the same time, there are literally millions of people who are living as refugees in countries where they are systematically excluded from the workforce. And this includes people with years of education, training, specialized skills, and a profound desire to rebuild their lives through putting that training and experience to work. So here we've got this massive demand in some parts of the world and a totally excluded supply in other parts of the world. And Talent Beyond Boundaries is here to ask the question, why? What a waste, and can't we do better? Can't we do better for everybody involved? Certainly we can do better for companies. We can do better for countries that need skills, and we can definitely do better for refugees who urgently need new options to rebuild. So that's where Talent Beyond Boundaries comes from.
No, it's so interesting, and I love the fact that, I mean, not only obviously are you looking at the problem, but you're also kind of bringing a solution to the table, and you're connecting you're almost kind of acknowledging that, like, there's an imbalance here where you have the talent and you have the need for talent. And I know here in the States, we talk about this all the time, how there's a shortage of skilled workers, and of course, there's never enough H-1B visas and things like that. How is Talent Beyond Boundaries kind of working through some of those dynamics? And can you talk to us kind of about the details and give us some examples and some specifics of how you do what you do?
Yeah, maybe I'll tell you an individual story. When let's see, one of the very first candidates we worked with, well, to be honest, when we first got started, actually what we met with was a lot of skepticism. A lot of people saying, really, do refugees have skills? And I think once you've been in the work for a while, that kind of question feels outrageous. But really, we encountered that at first, and people with a genuine doubt that refugees were anything other than defined by their vulnerabilities, helpless, people in need of sort of handouts to the exclusion of looking at their capacities at all. So one of the very first things that we had to do was dispel that fiction, basically. And yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about that, because I think it's fascinating, because I can totally understand that, right? Because the images that we see on the news, right, are very, they're kind of desperate situations. People, it's not like a bunch of people lined up for a job interview, right? It's a bunch of people trying to survive, and so it's hard to see the skills that these people have. Well, where does that misunderstanding come from, you think?
I think it's a heavy narrative to have to shoulder. And the reality is, of course, people are in difficult situations. I mean, we're talking about people who are forced to leave home for reasons that they didn't choose. And it's easier when talking about a mass media narrative, when talking about, weaponizing sort of political discourse. It's easier to paint them with one brush that says, this is bad. We're talking about unfettered need. We're talking about people who are unidimensional. That's easier. Like you said, we get fed it in mass media. We get fed it from politicians, et cetera. And I think the reality is, of course, it takes more nuance and it takes more time to think through the reality that refugees are everybody. Anybody under the sun can become a refugee. And that includes people who thought they were going to be software developers, people who trained as nurses, people who are skilled carpenters and love working with their hands. I mean, it could be you and me. It includes everybody. Nobody chooses to find themselves in that situation. And I think something that's really not understood very well is that refugees, when they find themselves in a country, bordering maybe the country that they fled, they're often locked out of the workforce. Because for political reasons, it can be expedient for countries to say, you're not taking our jobs. And so what you end up with is basically a class of people without permission to put their skills to use, and people without permission to live with the full exercise of their rights.
To participate in society, right? Without permission to participate. And oh my gosh. Well, and I agree with you, because I mean, here we are in the States, and I see great questions coming in. Shout out to Denise for leaving the questions there. I see Roman checking in as well. This is awesome. Henri from France checking in. Marco, Jose, I'd love to hear your questions as well. Thanks so much. But we do see this. I mean, here in the States, we see kind of an anti-immigrant narrative, that's been playing out for a while, and it does seem to come from a bunch of different areas, right? Well, on the one hand, there's this I think misunderstanding about how the economy works, and how that there's that jobs are net zero sum game, right? Where it's like, if you take a job, that's a job, one less job I have, right? When in fact, we've actually, from what I've seen, is we've seen economic studies that say that one of the biggest limiters to economic growth is a lack of population growth.
Yeah.
Right. And the ability to actually have people that can produce things. So I find it so fascinating is how much of your work is actually in education of people around the value of these folks?
That's a good question. I think, to be honest, we've been able to find this area that actually isn't that controversial, in the sense that businesses often know what they need. Businesses know when they have a role that they can't fill locally. They've tried, they've spent their money, they've lost money not being able to fill these roles. What we found is that businesses aren't usually the ones who need convincing that a skill gap would benefit from being filled. And similarly, governments, I should say the governments that we've worked the most closely with are Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. And those governments, in the ways that we've been able to engage them, have been able to recognize, like you said, population decline inability to attract skills, those are existential threats for countries who are looking at the horizon of, 50 years, 100 years. And I think just seeing here a question about the global pandemic, certainly we can come back to that, but I would just say that for many countries, that only highlighted the issue more. That it was going to be a big problem not to be able to find the skills that they need and to attract those to the country, because we rely on those skills. So the funny thing is, I think there's one discourse that we all kind of swim in, but then when you actually get down to the company, or you get down to the economic immigration policy people, like I think there's actually a real understanding of the challenge we face and the need for new solutions.
Well, I mean, since you touched on it there, I mean, let's talk about Denise has a phenomenal question. Shout out to Denise for asking this question. I'd love to see more questions from everybody in the comments here. Denise says, how has the global pandemic environment impacted Talent Beyond Boundaries in helping align positions with talent?
I'd be really interested to hear from other people about your own experiences working in the relocation industry. I think what we found is that in the immediate around March, as shutdowns really started ramping up, we saw a slowdown in recruitment for sure. We saw companies really slowing down and taking stock about whether or not they were going to be able to recruit internationally as we all kind of grappled with the new normal. And we also saw border closures, which were going to make it difficult for people, even ones who had received visas, to relocate. And some of that difficulty in actually physically moving from countries like Jordan and Lebanon to countries like Australia, Canada, some of that difficulty has persisted through now. But I think, like I mentioned, I think what we also saw was that essential workers were an exception to that rule of border closures. There are skills that are needed in our communities, and refugees can be part of that talent pool. And we had refugees who work with our program who were able to move as essential workers during this pandemic. I mean, think about that. We've got refugees who are healthcare workers, who are living in countries where they are not allowed full access to their rights and exercise of their skills, while the world is going through a global pandemic. I mean, I think if anything, it kind of brings home the how this situation is.
Yeah, so interesting. We got some great comments coming in here as well. What percentage? I mean, you talk about the different types of roles. Give me an idea of who these people are, like what they do. You talk about healthcare workers, you talk about software developers. I mean, is there a type? Does that type vary by country that they come from? Give me some ideas kind of the skill demographics, if you will.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the crazy thing is that until we kind of started this work, not that many people were asking it. And that's because, like I said, there's a real sort of congealed narrative out there about who refugees are, and it doesn't sit on the kinds of skills that they have. So what we did was we built a talent catalog, a database, a technology that would allow us to ask people specific questions about their skills. And today that database has over 25,000 people who've registered, largely in Jordan and Lebanon, who are living as refugees. And I think, they have every skill in the world. We've got about
25,000. I'm sorry, you said 25,000 people have registered on this talent catalog?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
can we put up a link to this? Is this something people can reference?
So it's actually not something that we have an employer interface for yet. We do the searching on our end.
I see.
But I can certainly, and I'll come back to this, but anybody on this podcast who's interested in finding sort of hard to find talent, we've got this pool that's been overlooked for too long. So, and yeah, it's a large pool, and they've got every skill under the sun. I mean, we've got about 150 different professions. I would say the things that we've had the most traction in recruitment with have been IT and tech. Obviously, that's massively in demand. Healthcare, skilled trades. We've helped a butcher relocate, chefs and cooks, carpenters, welders, tool and die makers, sort of skills in the manufacturing and skilled trades that are hard to find locally and that people aren't filling in fast enough. So those have been some of the major industries that we've worked with.
Okay, I'm going to get super selfish just for a second here. I'm looking for a project manager. Is this how would this work? I mean, do I have to sponsor some sort of visa, or can I just reach out to you and be like, what's up? How does it work?
Yeah, great question. So for example, you would come to us and say, I'm looking for a project manager. Here's the job description. Can you help me? And what we would do is look through our database. We would meet the candidates who might be a good fit. We'd send you those resumes, and we would be doing on our side that due diligence to see, are these people do they have the skills that you are looking for? And are they going to be eligible for visa pathways into the jurisdiction that you're living in? Like I said, we actually haven't worked in the United States yet. I think the change in administration makes that a new possibility for us in a way that it wasn't before, but we've not helped anybody relocate into the United States yet. We've been focused on Canada, Australia, the UK. But so we would come back to you with some candidates for your consideration who we've done that visa checking for example, to see that they had a route in that we could support for them to move as skilled immigrants, though they are living as refugees.
And I'm guessing that, does it make any sense? This might be a dumb question. Does it make any sense to allow them to work from where they are, or is kind of the point to get them out of where they are?
It's a great question, and I think remote work is an important part of helping people move towards self-reliance. I think part of our mission is a more profound change in people's lives. You know, when you're living as a refugee, you've got really limited access to things like education for your children, healthcare, things like the ability to have a driver's license, to be free from worry about being deported. And when you get to move as a skilled worker to another country, that comes with all these other benefits of getting to be recognized legally, getting to have those things that many of us take for granted restored to you. Because people often move as workers with a route to permanent residence. So we're not just in the business of connecting people to income. We're in the business of connecting people to like a genuinely secure future that's been elusive for too long.
I love it. Absolutely love it. We got a bunch of people checking in on LinkedIn. This is fantastic. A bunch of people on Facebook as well. Hit that like button. Let people know that we're talking about this very important conversation with this wonderful organization and Madeline here. Let's go here and check out some of the comments, see who's checking in with us. Roman Zelichenko, good shout out Ben and Madeline from New York City. Thank you, Madeline, for all the work that you and Talent Beyond Boundaries do.
Hello.
Awesome. Have you had a chance to meet Roman? Roman's great.
My team members have. So yeah.
He's in Brooklyn.
Roman's another one of these great folks who've sort of emerged and put themselves forward. And we welcome anyone on this call who's feeling moved by this idea. You know, I would say that's how it is for all of us who've joined the team. It's just you hear this idea and you think, that's crazy, and I need to get involved in fixing it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Janet Turner from Central Florida. What's up, Janet? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, we're having some fun with the blue, you know. It's like a blue day, you know. Let's do it. Henri from France. What's up, Henri? Marco, hello from Chicago. So you mentioned the countries. Henri's in France. So the countries that you're currently working with right now: UK, Canada, Australia. Is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So any other countries kind of on the radar that you think that you might start partnering with?
Other countries are definitely on the horizon. I think one of the major issues that we were founded to resolve is that refugees right now don't have equal access to skilled migration. And that's not just an issue of having been made invisible by fake storylines about who they are. It's also a result of policies that weren't designed with them in mind. So for example, skilled immigration routes often erect these requirements that are uniquely difficult for people who have lived through displacement to satisfy. That could be things like requiring a passport. If you've been displaced from your country for 8 years, you might not have the ability to get a passport from your country of origin. That makes it hard to apply for a skilled visa. If you've been displaced for a long time, you might have dwindled savings. You haven't been allowed to work. Migration costs money. Skilled migration costs money. And sometimes you even have to prove how much money you have by showing how much you have in a bank account. And that's particularly hard to do if you're not permitted to have a bank account because you're living as a refugee. So we're not only here to make that connection, to sort of overcome that inefficiency between businesses who want this talent and talent that wants to be recognized. We're also here to help governments recognize the ways that they are making access for refugees to skilled migration inequitable, that they're blocking out people who could be contributing to their businesses and communities almost unintentionally, not thinking through the fact that actually there could be somebody who's skilled who is also a refugee. and policies need to be responsive to that. So for other countries, everywhere is on the table. And I would just say it's a process, because it's not only finding the right, companies finding the right talent, it's also us making sure that the routes there to let people in to do the jobs exist. And so we collaborate with governments to help them identify and overcome those barriers that are keeping refugees out of moving as skilled immigrants. So we are actively looking at Europe as a possible, broader parts of Europe as a potential destination. We are thinking about the United States, exploring how we can help people rebuild their lives in those other countries and companies as well.
So interesting. I'd love to hear your questions out there. If you're watching right now, throw it in the comments. We're going to get to all of those right now. Shout out to Hosea checking in from Seattle. What's up, Elizabeth from Jacob Street Partners out in Stamford, Connecticut? It's awesome. We've got Renee Stegman from Cape Town, South Africa. Hello. Looking forward to hearing about Talent Beyond Boundaries. This is awesome. Do you have folks from the continent of Africa? It sounds like is that an area you focus or no?
Yeah, so Talent Beyond Boundaries ourselves has operations in Jordan and Lebanon. So the folks that we are working with tend to be from origin countries of Syria, Palestine, Iraq, Yemen. That said, we are interested in not growing Talent Beyond Boundaries as an organization, but growing skilled migration for refugees as a solution that this world needs and that other people are going to get involved in. So everything we do, what we're interested in is teaching others about it, doing things like this. Companies need to know about this talent pool.
Right.
Other organizations who work with refugees to try to restore security and normalcy to life need to know that this is an option, or is becoming an option in a way that it hasn't been before. So some of the organizations that we work with who are refugee serving organizations are based in other parts of the world, including a close partner that's based in Kenya and working with people from other parts who have left homes in other parts of Africa. We're starting to look at how we can support organizations who are based in Latin America to help people who are living as refugees there. The problem is a global problem that is touching people from countries and contexts all around the world. And we see that skilled migration can be a solution across those contexts. And it's not just that we want to grow Talent Beyond Boundaries. We want to see this solution become so obvious that no one remembers it wasn't on the table before.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. This is great. We got some great questions coming in here. Michelle Durkin. Hi, Ben and Madeline. What's up, Michelle? Let's see here. Elizabeth's loving what you're doing. I'm sure everybody's watching this is inspired. Can't wait to see all the questions we got. Checking in from SoCal. Renee in South Africa says, we have a real problem with xenophobia, which is a terrible misunderstanding. Do you find this is a real issue with refugees?
I think xenophobia is absolutely an issue. It's an issue in places where people are currently living. One of our candidates tells a story about living in Lebanon. He was living there for 8 years, and he would pass on his way home this sign that said, Syrians, don't you dare put out your hand for work. People face xenophobia where they find themselves living as refugees. And then, of course, there's the risk of finding that when they relocate for work to other countries as well. But I think, like I mentioned, is that what we find is that the companies themselves and the workplaces understand why these skills are needed. And they're there to become that first community for people who are moving in. So I think while xenophobia is an issue everywhere around the world, what we've found is that this is a very positive storyline about people who've been locked out of making the contribution they want to the world, who are finding the place that needs them. Basically,
it seems like the trick is really not getting the citizens of a country on board with the idea of refugees coming there and working and using their skills. It's really about getting the companies who have demand for these skills on board. And I'll tell you, in the States, kind of companies in the free market kind of dictates how progress is really pushed forward. And so I get what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense, because it's really not about convincing people that it's a good thing. It's about filling roles at companies that need to be filled. And that makes a lot of sense. We've got Alan says, interesting that you work closely with the UK government as they used refugees and immigrants as leverage on persuading the population to push for Brexit. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously wading into complex territory. Immigration is a complicated issue and people have a lot of feelings about it. And I think, again, what we're trying to do is find that place that's a genuine win, a win-win across the board for companies, for governments, for refugees themselves. So the UK actually, in the wake of Brexit, has a real reckoning to do because they need immigrants. And they know that they've got a shortage of 50,000 nurses for the NHS that they know they need to fill. So I think, there is always there's negativity, but I think within that there are areas of common interest and there are ways that we can find positivity. And, I think that so often the discourse around refugees becomes toxic and it becomes so divorced from the reality of, like I said, refugees are anybody could become a refugee. They're not, it's a thing that happens to you. It's not a characteristic. It's not who you are. So I think that by training back in on these are individuals who have a lot to offer, just like any other individuals, we've been able to find that kind of win-win between what companies need, governments need, refugees need, and that benefits communities also. And I think
all right.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead. No, I was going to say, I think you're right. I think, this can get really politicized, and I know that's not necessarily the focus of what you're trying to do. You want to talk about the opportunity, and I get that. I think that's awesome. Sarah Buck says, Alan King here in the UK, we help provide accommodation, therefore an address for asylum seekers to help them on their way. What are some of the things that asylum seekers need when they get to a country? Just out of curiosity, because we're always, in relocation, we're always about kind of softening the landing for people as they go to new countries. So what are some of the things that they need in order to be successful when they get there?
Accommodation is definitely one of them. I mean, so what we find is that once somebody's got a job offer and they're ready to move, sometimes it depends on the company size in terms of what kind of budget the company has to support that relocation. Some companies are able to provide that kind of serviced accommodation, others aren't. And like I said, refugees are often moving with little to no savings because it's been depleted over years of displacement. So things like serviced apartments for that first 4 weeks where they're trying to get their feet under them, transition into a new job, find a new place to live, having a permanent, an address that they can put, that's critical. So relocation, places to stay, support on flights. We found some incredible charities like one called Miles for Migrants that can donate flights, donate airline miles to help people cover the cost of flying, because again, that cost can be prohibitive for people. We've also, finding ways to tap into community once people have arrived is really important. People move with their families. So often, even if somebody is the person with the job and they enter right into community, they might have a spouse and children who also need support in navigating community services. I think that all of the work that you all do to help employees thrive is, exactly the kind of services that refugees relocating for jobs need as well.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really curious how this whole idea really started. I mean, was there a moment, was there like an aha moment or a light bulb moment that got Talent Beyond Boundaries off the ground?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think like many ideas whose kind of time has come, there were a few strands of convergent evolution on this. The founding couple is a couple named Bruce and Mary Louise Cohen, and Bruce had worked in the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committees as a chief counsel for a long time, and Mary Louise had been a defender of whistleblowers for a long time, and they were looking for, a way to give back, and they went to a fundraiser where someone observed that they had been visiting refugees in Jordan fleeing from Syria, and met a gentleman who was a lawyer who said, I was a lawyer, I did everything right. I have 3 kids and I can't provide for them anymore. And Mary Louise and Bruce, being lawyers, thought, well, that's crazy. Surely somebody out there in the world is connecting people with evidence skills with parts of the world that need those skills. And they thought, somebody's got to be doing this.
Yeah,
And then the more
too obvious.
It's so obvious.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
Right.
And then the more that they looked into it, the more they realized that it had been talked about. People had sort of kicked around this idea that labor mobility, movement for work, could be a solution for refugees at a time when the world has more refugees than ever. But nobody had done it. And sometimes you just got to be the first one to do it. And they realized, man, that's going to have to be us. And kind of at the same time, John Cameron, who is a tech entrepreneur in Australia, and a former employer, had that realization, you know, I've sponsored people to move to this country. Why couldn't I apply that to refugees? And he started building some business support and political support in Australia. And then these two found each other, having sort of been convergent sides. Mary Louise and Bruce had started their work in Jordan and Lebanon. John had started in Australia. And then they linked up forces, and here we are, this global organization that's now in Jordan, Lebanon, Australia, Canada, the UK, and the United States.
Wow, that's incredible. And just out of curiosity, Madeline, how did you join the organization?
Yeah, I started as an intern working in the basement, just because once I heard this idea, I thought, I gotta get involved. I gotta work on this. I had worked with refugees who were relocated to the United States as resettled refugees. And I had, my job was sort of helping them find that first job in the United States. And I would meet with people who had every range of skills, and I would be driving them to work as a dishwasher, to interview to work as a dishwasher, or to be interviewing to work as a hotel cleaner. And that, you know, those are important roles that need to be filled. And yet I was taking people who trained in finance or trained in database management to take those jobs. And I just thought, there's got to be a smarter way to go about this. So when I heard about Talent Beyond Boundaries, I was just hooked. And I've been at it for 5 years and really seen it grow from this kind of crazy idea from a bunch of daring people into something that's actively transforming lives, providing talent to companies, shaking up the way we think about what's possible in solutions for refugees.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. I love it. Janet's got a great question. Who are Madeline's main target audience? I've heard her say working with governments, but is she also reaching out to corporations? Like, what are some of the companies that you work with? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Profiles.
Businesses are at the heart of this solution. You know, this is business led, and ultimately it's the business demand for this solution. It's the business demand for skills that they can't find that makes this work. That's going to drive this to the scale that we need. Some of the companies that we've worked with include, we just had somebody relocate for a job at Shopify in Canada. We've had somebody relocate to work with Accenture, somebody with EY, and we've also worked with small and medium-sized corporations, you know, a tool and die manufacturer in Ontario, Canada, or a cabinet maker, or like I said, a group called Harvey Beef in Australia who does meat production, a software as a service company called Bonfire in Canada. We are working across the spectrum with, you know, in the early days, we needed companies who were willing to take this risk with us to see what was possible. And increasingly, as we've built that government support, as we've built out our organization, we're ready to sort of even ramp up that work to do recruitment with companies. So
how many people have you moved so far?
To date, nearly 60 people are living in new countries as a result of our work. And we've got another 60 plus who are in visa processes soon to move. And we're looking to be going on a rapid growth trajectory over the next 2 years because, like I said, a lot of the work was knocking down those doors of government. And what we've done is, by showing that this is possible, sort of opened the road where there wasn't one before. So we've got interest and commitment from governments to make this work in a way that they weren't aligned, or they weren't quite there with us before. So I think now is the time for us to be taking what we learned with that small number and saying, let's go, let's get bigger, let's match more.
So you talk about, you know, growing a lot. I mean, what kind of goals do you see in maybe 2 years?
In 2 years, For example, the governments of Australia and Canada have committed to allow 600 skilled refugees to move in partnership with us.
Oh, wow.
So that's 600 principal applicants. And if they move with their families and you have an average family size of 3 or 4, I mean, we're talking about thousands of people's lives we can transform over the next 2 years. But it takes a lot of, it's going to take some things lining up. It takes having the businesses. So I would say to anybody who's on this call who's thinking, gosh, this company I'm aware of could be really into this. They struggle to find roles. They want to do something good for the world. Let us know. You know, we need the companies. And I think the other thing we need is the resources. So if anybody's here is sort of tapped in with philanthropy or thinking that their company might be interested in this from a CSR perspective in order, you know, to give philanthropically, that's another thing that we need to realize the potential of this solution. And I would say that's on the 2-year time horizon. But what we're thinking is much bigger. What we're thinking is, how do you normalize refugees to be part of the skilled talent pool? How do you make it possible for this to be an ongoing solution? How, you know, there are, from our sort of back of the envelope calculations, over 600,000 people living as refugees who have secondary, you know, have college education or more. And they have families. You know, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of people whom this could be a solution for if we can get the system working right.
Yeah, and this goes to Elizabeth Sully's question here. What are 3 things we can do to help? And you've given us a couple, but you know, here we are, a community of talent mobility, you know, people, right? And we're working with, you know, we're all in different kind of parts of the equation here, but we're working with HR departments, we're working with talent organizations, we're working with people organizations within these really large companies, and our job is to mobilize those organizations' talent. So I feel like we're really meeting you at the intersection of this problem in a way. So how do we, you know, tell us kind of a story, if you will. You know, I want to answer Elizabeth's question, 3 things that we can do to help, but maybe also kind of tell us what like tactical things we can do. What does success look like? You know, what kind of emails can we send you after this, right? That will really make your day.
Yeah, great question. I'm already seeing a few in the comments. I mean, an email that I would love to see is, I know this company is going to be thrilled about this, and I know that they're going to want to recruit 15 people if you can put the right resumes in front of them. I love those kinds of emails. But some of these ones that are more about partnerships, you know, we provide global you know, housing for people in that temporary, you know, transition stage. I want those emails too. That's great. I mean, thinking about how do we get ready for scale? How do we, as a you know, small nonprofit organization, help this reach its potential? How do we put the right partnerships in place? If you know immigration firms who you know are going to want to be doing this work, if you know logistics companies who want to be doing this work and want to form global partnerships, I think any and all of those emails, I love them. We love them.
Yeah, you know, Elizabeth, to your question here, you know, gosh, I mean, if I'm a service provider to a corporation that I know is sourcing for talent, you know, like Madeline just described, and I go to them and I say, you know, hey, there's this amazing nonprofit organization that puts great talent with great opportunities, and maybe, you know, maybe it looks like, you know, if I'm the temp housing person, like we just had from, I think it was Sarah mentioned, you know, maybe for everyone that you source, I'll give them 60 days of temp living when they come over. You know, I think little things like that. And Jose Abatley from Reversal Global Relocations, you know, he runs an international moving company. Yeah, I know he does a lot with relief to. I want to say it's not. It's gosh, which African country is? I forget off the top, but. You know, I know he's moving aid, but I mean, he could probably also give some sort of a, you know, a deal on the movement, you know, on the household goods shipping, right?
Yeah, I think you guys, you know, you're so intimately involved in these things like setting up your first bank account. You know, folks who are really good at helping with that. Folks who are really good at helping people navigate the tax system when they first move. You know, folks who are good at helping people with that first housing search. Any of those things. Yeah, all of it helps. All of it. People who know how to really get people tapped into community once they arrive somewhere.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting because we do a lot with Move for Hunger, which is a big charity in our space. And you know, one of the things that they've done is they formed a corporate action network. And they've brought together people like the folks in the comments, you know, when we actually meet quarterly and we actually put our collective minds together around these problems, you know, and we kind of each bring our expertise, you know, and then we get together and it's kind of powerful when we put our heads together, you know, and I could totally see some groups, you know, working together in the countries that you've mentioned. I'm just,
if convening something like that, love those emails too.
Yeah.
Like that sounds exciting.
I gotta watch out. I'm gonna sign myself up for some more work, but this is cool. This is so much fun here. Let's see what other questions we've got here as well. Mark Moose, love from the mountains in MW Relo, Switzerland. Hey, Mark Moose, it's good to see you, bud. Henri, are you active in non-English speaking countries as well? Henri wants to know.
Yeah, great question. I mean, a lot of this is about language abilities of the candidate pool that we're working with. But for example, many refugees across the world, of course, aren't English speaking. Many are Spanish speaking. Many are Francophone. I think, like I said, we have sort of begun this work in what happen to be English speaking countries, but that's not where our ambitions end. So while we don't have active programs right now in non-English speaking countries, the solution is equally applicable. And it's just about sort of getting the resources and the time to operationalize that.
Is language training something that would help your refugees be, you know, better candidates or comply with maybe some of the requirements of the countries they're going to?
Absolutely. Love those emails too. English language
Okay.
is a often a requirement not only of employers, but also of immigration systems. You know, people will need to achieve a certain score on an IELTS exam or something like that. I think without a doubt, the pool of talent who's skilled, who's ready to contribute would grow significantly if there were more resources to be invested in English language training. I think
I'm thinking because we've had like Global LT, we've had different language training companies come on that actually work with employees who are transferring to other countries. And I got to think it would be fairly easy for them to make those services available on a pro bono basis to your organization.
That would be, you know, incredible. For English, we also, not only do people need it to compete for the jobs, to compete for the visas, but they also need, you know, we hear from people that that's one of the biggest challenges when they do move, is just, you know, going suddenly to working in a full English environment. You know, the more support that we could provide there, I think the more that helps people adjust.
Yeah, this is great here. Janice saying, check out Rafiki Foundation headquartered in Eustis, Florida. They have orphanages in 10 African countries. They offer education up to and including college age and training for job interviews. Interesting.
Yeah, you know, something that we find is that many organizations who focus on things like education, training, they're so excited to hear about this possibility. Wow, refugees can move for work. They can move to other countries because the opportunities, even after people have been trained, even after they have education, are so limited. You know, it's illegal for the most part for people to put the training to use. So we find that groups potentially like this one, but groups in general that are focused on training, on upskilling, they're thrilled to hear that there's an opportunity for people to compete abroad.
I love it. This is great. Elizabeth asks, have you reached out to the New American Economy? It is a smart immigration group that is funded by Bloomberg.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I'm definitely familiar with their work. Like I said, the United States hasn't been a destination for us up until this point. But I think as we shift our eyes there and think about how could we open up this solution in the US, New American Economy is a great potential ally.
Awesome. Cindy Salter from Dallas checking in. What's up, Cindy? Kim Krollman, Madeline, our church here in Phoenix works with a group called Welcome to America. Are you familiar with that group? The majority of refugees are for Lebanon and Syria. We can connect you if you don't work with them currently.
I don't know them currently, but I'm always eager to you know, hear from others, learn from others' experiences. I think as we start to work more in the United States, those relationships will become even more critical.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, people have found pathways and things that make sense. You know, do you find, a side note here, just personally, do you find that a lot of people have like Like, oh, have you tried this? Oh, have you tried that? And it's like, okay, well, I could really use some help over here. Like, hey, let's get our hands dirty. You know, have anything you want to explore and take the lead on. We're happy to have, right? It's, you know, I feel like that's got to be a common thing. Oh, have you tried this? You know, it's like, oh.
You know, we're definitely a startup. We're this scrappy team who's really mission driven and always looking to expand the tent of people who want to get involved in promoting this idea and mission. So I love it. I love the enthusiasm. Sometimes we can't follow up on everything just because we're trying to do so much in the world, but I know I always appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I get it. I get it. Let's see here. Mary Lee says, I like the quote by Natalie Dixon, the opposite of reactive might not be proactive, but instead creative. I think that we've all seen this explosion of real creativity and the power of the worker and the organizational potential. The marketplace concept does help workers have more freedom to pursue their passion areas and more freedom to help organizations tackle business problems. As we know, organizations can no longer take old approaches to filling skills, but consider all talent pools. Yeah, I mean, I got to think if you have 25,000 skilled workers on your in your talent catalog, then really it's just about connecting talent, you know, recruiting and talent organizations within these within companies in the countries that you have open pathways with to just start sourcing talent. I mean, it doesn't seem. I mean, it seems like that's the low-hanging fruit to me, Madeline.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just other things that we're open to, people who work closely with recruiting firms and have seen how do those guys do this efficiently and at scale. You know, that's the learning curve that we're on, and we welcome that kind of mentorship. You know, how do we turn from being an organization that's worked with hundreds to starting to become an organization that supports thousands to match and move? The last thing I think that your quote just made me think of is I think that the human side of it, I should say, like, you know, there is some element of just intellectually, it's like, damn, it just makes so much sense, and you can't get it out of your head once you thought about it. But I think also that human side of it, I think that's a big part of what's drawn me to the work, and a lot of what keeps people with this work is, you know, getting to do the job that you train for and that you love has a real human impact. And, you know, we work with people where refugees are often only asked about what's wrong. You know, what do you need? What's going wrong for you? They're so rarely asked, what do you do? What are you proud of in your set of accomplishments? What have you spent your time building in yourself? And, you know, actually in Kenya, working with that partner organization, I sat down with a gentleman to interview him about his skills to see where he might be a fit. And he said at the end of the interview, you know, even you asking me about what I can do makes me feel like a human being again. I think we can't underestimate also just the power of removing these people from this, like, from behind this wall that they have been stuck behind, of sort of excluded, left out, and just sort of letting them be seen like everybody else, as somebody who could compete, somebody who has something to offer, somebody who is here to put their best foot forward. So it's just your comment there, this idea of freedom to pursue their passions. I mean, for many people, this is about the opportunity to pursue their passions in ways that got cut off for them for reasons totally beyond their control.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It reminds me of sociology in college, right? When you study Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, and you're just trying to get like that food, shelter, but then at the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, right? And when these professionals actually get back into their field and kind of are doing their highest and best, you know, work, that's got to feel amazing, you know?
Yeah, and I think we all know those people in our lives who, if cut off from the permission to do their job, what would that do to their spirit, you know?
If I became a dishwasher tomorrow, I would be pretty upset about it, to be honest with you. I was like, no, trust me, that was a big deal. Like, can I get an opportunity to, like, go wash the dishes? I'm like, no, but like, for real, like, I appreciate that and I need the money. I'm gonna go do it. But like, on the real, can I get something else? That makes a lot of sense to me.
And it's a loss for everyone if you don't get to do that job that you train for, that you're passionate about, that you're going to bring your best to. You know, all of us lose.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Lynn Greenberg. Lynn Greenberg is the CEO of Pivot, which is an app that helps people kind of settle in and find community
Mm,
in their new country on their new assignment.
cool.
Lynn says, hi, also inspiring what you're doing. Lynn's got a great heart, so she might be another great connection as we're throwing all these amazing ideas at you. But Henri asked the real question: how do you guys stay focused and efficient given the task at hand and the size of your team and all these amazing suggestions that keep coming your way all the time?
A great question. And as I'm sure, it seems we have many leaders of different groups on this call, this is the question, how do we stay really laser focused? I think one of the things that really drives us is thinking about the long-term vision, the scale. We're not interested just in creating this solution for today. We're interested in seeing this become an enduring, permanent expansion of opportunities for refugees. So that's part of how we have to prioritize. How are we leaving these routes more open as a result of our work? How are we opening up this space for others to get involved? How are we embedding this so that it becomes normal? So that the idea that you could exclude people who'd been displaced from skilled migration seems crazy. I think trying to keep that focus on the big picture systems change drives a lot of our thinking about what to prioritize and whatnot. But
Yeah.
that said, always wish we could grow the team, always wish we could do more.
But
And
probably through volunteers, right? Volunteers and partnerships, and us going from, hey, wouldn't this be a cool idea, to, hey, I'd like to help with, those kinds of things, right?
yeah, I think that's right. Through partners, we can have so much more impact. We do have so much more impact than we have just, with our own little footprint.
Well, we've got our first volunteer, Madeline, actually, Christian Hufelu, who is a cultural expert here in the States. Sandra Clary attempted to say yes, haven't watched the episode, though. Hey, you know what, Christian, don't even worry about it. Just email Madeline, and we're just going to sign you. We're going to conscript you right here, and you're just going to start helping us is what's going to happen.
Welcome
Gotcha.
to the team.
I'll recruit for you. Don't worry about it. Renee, this is a great solution for achieving the SDGs. We really need to find solutions to make this work. Well done. This is a sustainable solution to the global talent pool. Should be part of corporation strategy to search for refugee talent in their new location they're setting up. Yeah, this really seems like a secret weapon for some recruiting. For anybody in recruiting, honestly. So you got all these skilled jobs you need to fill, and if you're in one of these countries that has a pathway, like you were saying before, Canada, the UK, Australia. It seems like, this could really, and Christian's freaking out. What am I saying? Don't worry about it, Christian. We'll fill you in. Don't worry about it. You'll love it. But yeah, this seems like this is sustainable, and I guess I would ask you, Madeline. This seems so obvious. What am I missing? What's the hard part here? This seems truly obvious, and it seems like need people, have people with jobs, have jobs over here. We have countries we kind of have identified where there's a pathway. But what's the biggest obstacle, even when we see the puzzle pieces that obviously fit?
It's a great question. And I think it's one of those situations of the details are hard. And the truth is that government bureaucracies are difficult to navigate. And we've got, stickiness exists at every stage. Like I said before, one of our first visas we applied for failed because somebody couldn't get a passport. And the application system that they had to apply through required they have a passport, and it was an online system, and they couldn't even submit it because they didn't have a valid passport. And this was somebody who, a passport would have cost them money they didn't have. And even if they could have afforded it, they didn't feel safe getting it. So you've got these little human details that get in the way. And what you need are creative thinkers, just to that quote about creativity as well. What we're asking in some ways seems so obvious, and in another way is like a profound shakeup of the status quo for people who are really used to putting refugees in one pile and skilled immigrants in another pile and seeing no room for overlap between them. So I think the challenge has been in those details, finding out how do you get money to somebody to be able to support themselves to even take the application process on for this when they can't hold a bank account. I think there's little details, and those are I
Sure.
think one way to think about it, though, is like they're all solvable, and what it takes is just the resolve, the resources, the persistence, the unwillingness to let it go, because the idea demands that we do better, and the people who are waiting for an opportunity to get back to life really demand better.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think there's a tendency to, this whole conversation requires so much nuance, right? The refugees as people. I mean, that requires nuance to look beyond the headlines and the way people are just, whole groups of people are just characterized, and looked at, and the application process. I mean, there's nuance throughout, and let's be honest, right? We don't have a lot of time for nuance these days. It's, everything's in like 20 character, headlines on my phone as I'm scrolling through, right? So you need to take the time to slow down, see people for who they are, and really dig into problems and make a difference. Madeline, this is really fun, but let's have a little more fun. You want to play a game with me, Madeline?
Let's do it.
All right. So Madeline put together a top 5 today for me. Tim, you want to bring that top 5 up? Madeline, what was your top 5 today?
I'm not gonna lie, I struggled on this, but I did top 5 ways to take a coffee. I sense this might be controversial, but I just, yeah.
Oh no, we're gonna judge you on this. So this is very, first 55 minutes, safe zone, say whatever you want, it's all good. Last 5 minutes, forget the politicization of refugees and immigrants. We're gonna get really political about how to take a coffee here, okay? Oh, this is great. I love it. Can't wait. Number 5.
Mr. Coffee. Who doesn't like a good Mr. Coffee?
I don't know. I mean, what's so great? Tell me, okay, Mr. Coffee. By Mr. Coffee, what are you exactly referring to?
Isn't that kind of like the coffee maker, classic kitchen?
Like the one that's in my kitchen right now? Yeah, like just a drip coffee.
Yeah, something just really comforting, homey,
reliable
about a good coffee.
Okay, all right. I can tell you struggle with this top 5. Okay, number 4.
Espresso shot, just there's nothing like it. That one shot after dinner, first thing in the morning.
Now you're talking. See, the after dinner espresso is slept on. That's a New York thing. After dinner espresso, a little sambuca, a little anisette, Yeah, now you're talking with the little lemon rind on it, Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what's up. Okay, all right, you redeemed yourself.
Okay, beautiful. This list, I don't think.
No, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough 3 minutes for you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Number 3.
Whipped coffee quarantine style. Who remembers early deep quarantine? That cute whipped thing, sugary. That really got some of us through. You know what I mean?
Okay. So I got to say something. First of all, early deep quarantine. It sounds like the Mesozoic era. It sounds like there's it sounds like, okay. Yes. Early deep quarantine would probably be around June, July. It was hot out. Okay. So I got to be honest. I've never had a whipped coffee.
Do you know what I'm talking about? It was big on social media stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you make it, just for the uninitiated, such as myself?
Yes. Okay. Here's how you make it. Instant coffee. You put some instant coffee in a cup. Then you do a little bit of boiling water. Then you add healthy amount of sugar.
Healthy, but meaning an unhealthy amount of sugar.
Yes. Then you whip that. So my dad, feeling sad that we were in deep quarantine, sent me a little milk frother. So you whip that. The water, the instant coffee, the sugar. Then you pour in the milk, and it's an experience.
It's like thick, right?
It's kind of thick. Yeah, it feels like some kind of coffee you got out. It feels
nice. All right, I'm with it. This is awesome. Okay. All right. No, these are actually, you know what? I'll be honest with you. This is a very, very good 5-to-1 gradient. So over 5, 3, 4 is rapidly improving. All right, this is amazing. Okay, big fan of number 3 so far. Number 2.
Gotta do the iced latte. Who doesn't love a good iced latte? Summer. Who doesn't love that?
I love a latte. I like iced coffee. And now, is this an iced latte from Starbucks, or where are we getting this iced latte from?
Anywhere that does iced lattes. You do your milk variations. So many choices these days. I'm getting really into oat milk.
I was gonna say, okay, oat milk. We could have done a top 5 milks to put in your coffee. That would be interesting. All right, iced latte, oat milk, anywhere. Okay, all right. Anywhere's a little broad for me, but I'll allow it. Number 1.
Flat white. Gotta be honest, I'm not positive what the difference is between a flat white and a cappuccino or a latte.
I have no clue. I have no clue what a flat white is. I just see the thing and it looks good.
Yeah. But I just like it when I get it, and I like the way it sounds. And
sounds cool as hell, to be honest with you. Flat white.
Yeah, exactly. So that's 5 ways to take a coffee. I don't even know what Irish coffee is that somebody's recommending.
Yeah, you're already getting heckled here from Alan King. Number 1 has to be Irish coffee. So an Irish coffee, Alan, correct me, anybody correct me. An Irish coffee is when you add Irish whiskey to a coffee. Now, what I don't know is if it has milk in it or not. Yeah, I don't know a lot of things. Okay, so there's that. I mean, there's like a whole variety of like coffees with booze in them, right? So you can do the Baileys, you could do the Kahlua. My favorite, I mean, nobody asked me, but here I go. My favorite actually is putting Patron XO Cafe, the purple Patron. That is the jam in your coffee in lieu of sugar or whatever. Maybe top a little rum chata off on top of that, or a little Baileys. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea, actually. This is great. This has been a lot of fun, Madeline. Thank you for being such a good sport here with the top 5 as well. I wanted to ask you just before we wrap here, is there any kind of any final thought that you want to leave us with?
A final thought to leave you with. I think, my organization is focused on working with people who've lived through displacement and are desperate for an opportunity. I think, this isn't the only pool that is overlooked and left out. And, but I think it's such a good example of what's possible when you ask those questions, when you give, like that guy said, when you give people the chance to feel like a human being again. And I think for all of you working in the relocation industry, I'm loving the enthusiasm to get involved with this population. And I know that there are so many people all over the world, equally hungry, equally deserving. And I guess I've learned so much about, taking the time to do that extra looking for who's been hidden for too long.
Yeah. Seems like there's a real opportunity out there. I would encourage everybody that knows somebody within the talent space of HR, or whoever's looking for skilled workers, to reach out to Madeline's team over at Talent Beyond Boundaries. Get involved. They've got 25,000 skilled workers waiting for opportunities. Seems like a no-brainer to me. Let's make it happen. Also, if you have skills out there, whether it be logistics, temp housing, immigration, language skills, Christian Hufaloo's cultural skills, whatever, please reach out and get involved. Also, any great suggestions you have that you're willing to actually work on are always welcome. So please reach out to Madeline. And it's been a real pleasure to talk to you about this. It's really opened my eyes, and I think it's really, it's been good for everybody. So thank you so much, Madeline. Appreciate you coming by.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us this platform. And yes, please don't be shy about reaching out.
Awesome. And don't forget, everybody, tomorrow's Friday, which means it's Friday Fun Day. Every week we're doing something different. Tomorrow we are actually doing a quiz show, doing actual CRP questions, which is going to be hilarious. I passed the CRP exam, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. I've probably forgotten everything I learned. We're going to also merge that with a drinking game because it is Friday. So we're going to be doing a drinking game, CRP questions. It's going to be me versus a few other people that are probably smarter than me. Could get messy. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see y'all tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern. Thanks, everybody. God bless. Take care. Bye.